Hello, and welcome back to the Thought Leader Career Podcast. I'm Sam Bylett, and today I'm joined by Jill Osterhout, CEO at KCO Resource Management. Jill, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Good to have you here. Jill, for those who don't know, can you tell us what KCO Resource is all about?
So, we are a recruiting company. We specialize in the niche industries of natural, organic, food and beverage, CPG, so consumer packaged goods, manufacturing and sales, anything from the back end finance, accounting, all the way to the production floor. We do anything within that niche, but only those niche areas.
Okay. And what got you interested in the CGC space and especially that natural organic side of it?
So I, as a consumer, support natural, organic food and beverage, especially. That's how I had always shopped and the foods that I had always purchased. And so when I was starting KCO, I thought I really want to work towards supporting things that I already support as a consumer. So that's how I made the decision to go into natural and organic. And then the dairy part ended up being by accident. One of our first clients in the early years was Chobani Yogurt. And we started working with them when they were, 50 people in a small old craft plant in upstate New York. And it was just before they started really growing. So we started working with them on many, many different positions, all centered on yogurt production. So we quickly became experts in yogurt. And then the next step outside of that was just the dairy industry in general, because here we're working with all these people that have maybe 5 years of yogurt, but maybe they've worked within cheese production for 20 years. So we kind of branched out from there. Natural, organic food and beverage and dairy food and beverage. Those are our specialties.
Interesting. And do you work with kind of big establishment players or up and coming brands, or is it a bit of a mix?
Yes, it's definitely a mix, and it always has been. Every company has different needs at different stages of their history. So when you have a startup, they absolutely need help because they're usually running very lean and they don't have people to really devote to finding and hiring other people. So for small startups, we usually function almost as an entire HR department. We really take over the process for them and help them find that help that they need in those initial stages, but we end up doing much more for them than just finding a good candidate. And at the middle, sort of, they've been an established business, they're chugging along, maybe they're like a $50 million a year business, but they really are understanding their needs as far as, okay, now we really need this very specialized position. This is where the hole in our team is. Then we come in and help them with their specialized target positions. Then when you have your really large companies that are, whether they're national or international, they have a recruiting department, but always needs fluctuate, hiring needs fluctuate. So they're hiring in their department and staffing for their average needs, but sometimes they're going to have growth years where their recruiting department can't keep up with their hiring needs, so they'll come to us to get a little extra support. Maybe they have something very confidential that they don't want to get out in their company at all. It's very specific, confidential. They'll come to us. We'll do a very targeted, very confidential search. It feels more protected to them, I think. So there's reasons like that. And a larger company would come to us, or maybe the recruiting department is used to recruiting in a certain area or in a certain way, and they're starting to expand. Or maybe they just acquired a different company, and so their recruiting department doesn't quite have the expertise that they need. So they'll come to us for those needs also.
Interesting. And I saw a report recently that said CPG hiring in the US is picking back up after a slower 2023, especially in categories like natural food and functional beverages. Are you seeing that play out with your clients?
We never really slowed down much at all since the COVID pandemic. That was a true pause button in our industry for about 6 months, so 2020. And then, other than that, sort of March to summer of 2020, our industry is either very stable and very strong or just feels like it's growing because at the base of what we do, it's food and beverage. And so, no matter what's happening in the economy, People always need to eat. One of the first things that they put their money towards, besides housing, is food. So there's not the same sort of fluctuations that happen in other industries. So even though we might have slight contractions, it's never very a sustained contraction. It always chugs along very steadily. And if anything, we feel like we're still on this growth wave of the last decade. It's just been growing and growing and growing.
Get busier and busier. It
Yeah, a
seems.
sustained busyness is how I would describe it.
And beyond hiring, are there any trends you're seeing across the companies you're supporting right now?
Yes, right now the biggest there's a couple things going on. So as we've all heard in the news, the work from home versus remote work, that's something companies are still struggling with. Do we allow positions to stay remote that went remote during the pandemic? What is the continued need? How does it support our business or not? They're really struggling with, do we keep those positions or not? Because they're so attractive to candidates. Candidates will give up many things to maintain a remote position because they've discovered that it really works nicely with their lives. It helps people to balance their work-life balance easier. And then also companies are dealing with this ever evolving technology changes, right? So everyone also has heard in the news AI. So what does that mean for us? How does that change how we market? How does that change our sales? How does that change how we approach our customers? People are struggling with, how do I integrate this in a way that's advantageous for us? And how do I keep up with my competitors? And what are the ways that I need to utilize this clearly new tool that everyone has in their sites as something that they need to think about? And that's something people are still trying to figure out. Not everyone has settled on, what does this mean for us?
Yeah, and yourself, are you using a lot of AI in your operations?
So we fall right into the company I was describing. That is also us. We know we want to implement it. We know it could be advantageous for us in certain areas. We are really just trying to take our time to do the research, talk to experts, or as expert as anyone can be in AI at this point because it's still so new. And I think even those experts are still trying to see what's happening. It is changing things. For instance, SEO, search engine optimization, how you get people to come to your website or find out about you. AI is severely changing what that looks like. So we're just trying to really collect information, do our research, and then take our time on, how do we implement this? Because we are a smaller business, so whenever we invest in anything, it needs to definitely have an impact for us. So we're kind of getting towards the finish line on that. We do have some thoughts, but we haven't inked anything yet at all.
Yeah, yeah, it's important not to, like you said, to take your time and do the research because it's rapidly moving so fast, AI, and it's quite scary how fast it's actually going. So yeah, you don't want to be left behind, but you also don't want to kind of jump in feet first and make some bad choices. So yeah,
Exactly.
I agree with you there. You've worked with a lot of growing brands. What would you say to a CEO who keeps saying they just can't find good people?
What we usually like to help remind people that feel like they can't find good people is, let's look at what you actually need. What are the actual skills that you are looking for? And then let's look at these other things that are, I would describe them as more nice to haves, that people feel like they're essential, but maybe they aren't quite essential. And if you really drill down on those things, I think people understand that you can find people. You just have to relax some of these parameters. Some people are able to move with you on that, and some people are not. And so usually the smaller the target is, the longer it's going to take to find that person. Is there usually that person out there? Most of the time, yes, that person does exist. Might it take a lot longer than you're expecting to find that person? Yes. If you need someone quickly, some of those nice to haves maybe need to be adjusted. So it really depends on a person's ability to kind of work with you on that. Some people can, and some people have a harder time.
So would you say that there's not a talent shortage in your industry? It's just need to do a bit harder work and search in the right places. Or a bit of both. Is there a slight challenge for talent?
So in some roles, there always has been less of a candidate pool to draw from. Very scientific roles. If you have a need for someone that did research and development, developing let's say we talked about yogurt before, a yogurt that has very specific properties and you want someone that has experience with that. Okay, that's going to naturally be a very small candidate pool. So there, yes, there are certain roles that always have been and probably always will be a very small amount of candidates to draw from. But a lot of roles, there are people that have that skill set, that ability, the talent, the experience. It's just a matter of these other things that companies look for. A lot of times they fall under cultural fit or feeling like they're going to mesh with the existing company culture. Those things with the same skill set sometimes aren't always exactly aligned, or a company could be located in a very not an attractive location for most people, and they want people to move there. And if they do, they have to then change the balance of enticing someone, whether it's with a title or salary or benefits or bonus. And some companies just don't understand that this super rural location in this very rural state is not a place that most people want to root their families and move them to unless there's a very big upside. So it's getting companies to kind of get on the same page with that line of thought also. That does affect candidate pools.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you seeing companies lose talent to brands that maybe offer better culture and pay and flexibility?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Especially when you add in a lot of these newer things like, well, that position I can still stay remote, and this one is only part-time remote. Sometimes I have to be in the office. This position is offering more, whether it's more a higher salary or greater benefits, or there's something with the PTO package that they like. But that's always existed. What those things are is what has changed. So it's something that evolves with the time, what companies kind of have in their sights as this is what candidates want. Sometimes they understand it fully, and then those companies have a much easier time because they're reading the current pool of candidates well. And some companies have a harder time transitioning out of, well, this is what we offer and we think it's good and it's always worked for us. But that used to work. Now you're struggling. Let's see if we can look at these things, and maybe if you change this or adjust this, you might have a different result.
Yeah. So I suppose, yeah, top candidates, won't even consider a role if the company's values don't come through in that stage. So what does a strong kind of employer branding actually look like in the CPG space?
It really depends on what generation you're trying to target. You have your Generation X, your boomers, they're still thinking about the meat of the situation. Does this salary work for me? Does this title work for me? Do I feel secure? Do I feel comfortable in my current situation? Do I feel like this carries me through to my future goals of whatever that is for those people, whether it's, future retirement or being able to continue to go on their vacations, or they feel satisfied in their work level. And then you have younger generations that have different goals. You especially notice a swing when it comes to millennials and Gen Z. They're much more focused on a work-life balance and thinking that they're working on projects or with a company that align with their personal beliefs. So branding done by companies that have a strong value set and that they can clearly define what those things are and show how they're working towards those things. That's very attractive to those younger generations. And especially when they combine those with those personal benefits of work life balance, they're saying, oh, we care about the larger community or the larger world or the larger whatever the market is that they're working in, but then we also care about our employees on the same level. And that is very important, those two things for the younger generations to see, to know, to have where, and I'm not saying Gen X and boomers don't care about those things. It's just they're much more black and white with the things that they consider versus the younger generations. So that can be hard to tap into, but companies that have been successful are able to really clearly align all of those things. And there's your hiring trajectory.
I suppose the bigger companies you work with are probably more owned by the baby boomer generation, but that's probably coming to an end quite soon, isn't it? So it'd be interesting over the next few years, I should imagine.
You would think so, but I'm amazed at how many boomers are still super active in the work
Yeah.
world and are committed and have no plans to go anywhere.
Fair play to them. And what do you think is going to shape the future of recruitment in the CPG space? Could it be tech, DEI, or marketing shifts, or something else you can think of?
Yes. Well, I think two things are really going to change. Let's say we look at the next 10 or 20 years. Whatever happens with this AI,
That's
it's
the
really going to
interesting.
change things, right? Which that's almost hard to imagine exactly how this is going to unfurl over the next a bunch of years. So I myself am curious to see how that will change things, but I think it will. Also, the younger generations, these Gen Zs, the alpha generations, they just want very different things from past generations. And I know that's a generational thing. Every generation wants something different, but they're really pushing the boundaries of work, and they have so much control because they're so active on the social media platforms in ways that previous generations didn't. Voice is louder, it disseminates so quickly. They have access to end up on national news media from movements they start on these social media platforms. So really what is important to them, I think companies are going to ultimately have to pay attention to, because that is the future. They're coming up as a whole generation of future workers, and a lot of them have shown a strong willingness. Like, they just won't work, they won't take your job, they'll quit your job if they find that it doesn't align with what they want, which I think is a very interesting concept, because I watch this happening and I see these people make choices for themselves personally, but I always wonder, what is that point where the having the income and supporting yourself does finally bubble up to the surface. So that sort of line will be interesting to watch. But companies cannot keep forcing those younger generations into the way things were. They just won't. They will not accept it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The generational gap is just so huge now. When it used to didn't really change that much, but I think now is well, it is massively different, which is
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
very
Absolutely. You're
very
right.
interesting.
It changed a little bit per generation, but
Yeah,
it always felt big, but it really wasn't big when you look back at it. I remember coming, I'm Gen X coming into all boomer work world. And I remember not questioning anything. I just thought it all like, this is the way it was. And I just, and, started my work career exactly as it was already set out. And I never thought, oh, I should change this.
no, I think there's so much opportunity now, isn't there, with the internet and AI, that people are just quite confident if they leave this job, they can just do something else just like that. And it's just and they can. It's that simple these days to start a business or to grow a YouTube channel or something like that. It's opportunities are endless. So you can see why that's happening.
Yes, that's a good
Yeah,
point.
and yeah, Jill, for our audience, how can they find out a bit more about KCO Resource Management and connect with yourself?
Yes. So we have a website, www.kcoresource.com. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and we're definitely on LinkedIn. We are a family owned small business. So when I say family, I mean my husband and myself. So we started this business over 16 years ago, and we have an expertise in our industries: natural, organic, food and beverage, dairy, food and beverage. And we have a great group that works with us, a great team. And one of the things that I had set out when I started this business, I wanted a business that followed along with my personal beliefs. And so we really try and always remember that when we work with not just our clients, but our candidates also. So even though technically our jobs come from our clients, and that is who our consumer is, our business relationship is, we always remember that the candidates are people, and we're asking them a lot of personal questions, and we ask of them to trust us, and we ask them to be transparent with us. And so we always try and be very respectful and considerate. And sometimes we're asking people to consider relocating their entire families and upending their lives. So we hold that also a valued relationship. And I think that combination of respecting both sides equally has really been part of why we're still here 16 years later.
Yeah, excellent, great story, Jill. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thanks so much, Sam. I appreciate it. It was great to talk to you.
And yourself, take care.
Take care, you too. Bye bye.